Welcome, welcome. My name is Kelsey Doom. I am the President and CEO here at the Brookings Area Chamber of Commerce. We are happy to have you here today to talk about a really great opportunity that's come up rather quickly, and we're very excited to share with you. But first, just so you all know, this will be recorded and we'll put it out on our social media and YouTube page after the webinar. And also there's a Q&A tool at the bottom of your screen. So please use that to ask any questions. There'll be lots of time for questions. I've got some here queued up from business owners, but we really want to hear what you guys want to know. In addition, we'll be sharing some details on what the governor's office is offering as far as support for business owners. Actually, later today, they're doing something, and then what they'll be doing moving forward. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to these two gentlemen. We're happy to have Senator John Wiik and Representative Tim Reed with us today to share their involvement and how they have been part of the process, and also to explain what's happening. So gentlemen, do you want to start off, Tim, with giving us kind of the background on where this money came from and what it's going to be used for?
Sure. Good morning, everyone, and thank you to the Chamber and to Kelsey for putting this webinar on. We're excited for what's happened here over the past several weeks to put together this grant program. It really started back with the CARES Act. That was the money that was provided to the state through the Federal CARES Act earlier in the year, and it was $1.2 billion. And as the state started working through what it would use the funds for, it became obvious that there was going to be quite a few funds left over, and we wanted to figure out the best way of how to get that money into the hands of people so it would help our economy. And so the governor was working with the legislature, kind of more on an individual basis with several of the legislators on what should happen with this funding, and of course being in close working with the Joint Committee on Appropriations, which is a committee that meets all through the summer, or all through the interim. I should say it's more than the summer. They meet quite a bit, and they're actually an active committee that can do quite a bit of work when it comes with funding, and that's why we're privileged here to have Senator John Wiik. He's here as the chair. They have joint chairs, one chair for the House and one chair for the Senate, and they were in the thick of this, figuring out this program. Now, what happened was the legislature decided to have listening sessions. So several of the standing committees, like local government or health and human services, met jointly, so the Senate and the House together, to take input from those around the state on how we should use this funding. That kind of was boiled down then. Basically, there were several motions made by those committees, and that information was given to Joint Committee on Appropriations, and they really had the heavy task of figuring out what these programs should look like, and they also took testimony on that. And they put a lot of work into this in a short amount of time to get this program. Now, the reason why it's been kind of rushed is this money has to be expended by the state by the end of the year. Now, we've all been hoping that there would be some extensions on that, so we'd be a little flexible with this money, because there might be things that we want to do after the end of the year that would help to the response to COVID. But so far, there hasn't been any change at the federal level, any extensions given to this, so we have to make sure that we get it into businesses' hands to help keep our economy strong. And so with that, I'll ask Senator Wiik if he'd like to have any comments.
Well, thank you very much, Representative Reed. Yeah, we've been in the thick of this for a while, and the first question we were getting a lot is, what took so long? Why did we sit on the money? The main reason I was trying to hold this off is I believed that since COVID has lasted a lot longer than most people really thought it would, that Congress would give us an extension, and that would give us an opportunity to really sit down and fine tune how we were going to do this money instead of trying to move so quickly. But the one thing about South Dakota that is I think our greatest feature is we are a pretty small state and we are very nimble. So that gave us a chance to, I think, come up with some programs that are going to really work with people. I shouldn't say programs, I should say relief package. It came up with a single simple relief package that is really going to work. And I think we had a chance to vet it pretty thoroughly and really come up with some plans that are going to help. And if I had any fingerprints left on this plan, is that it's almost painfully simple. I really didn't want this to end up being who has the best accountant or who has the best tax attorney. I really worked towards steering the committee towards making something very simple. We're not worrying about how well you do your amortization tables. We're not worried about how well you count for aging inventory and all of those sorts of depreciation. What we're really worried about is your cash flow in 2019, your cash flow in 2020, your expenses in 2019, your expenses in 2020, and then in 2020, if you got PPP or any other federal help, let's subtract that out and make sure that the people who need the state help the worst get it and get up to $100,000 per business. And if we go over the $400 million on the small business plan, let's prorate that out so we can still get some amount of help to as many businesses as we can, because that's what this is all about. So is it going to make everybody whole? No. You heard reports somewhere between $1 billion and $2 billion in lost retail sales in South Dakota just because of COVID. And we were one of the states affected very least by this because we found ways to be creative and, again, nimble and stay open. So when this came together and we saw that we were staying open and seeing that there was still $2 billion worth of sales lost with a $400 million package, it sounds really huge, but it's trying to kick out a small dent in the side of the car that is our retail in South Dakota. So I hope we can get this help to people, and I hope that we can help answer any questions. The website tried to go live this morning. I've been hearing that there are a couple of glitches, and that's pretty common whenever this goes. So Guidehouse is the company that won the contract to administer everything, and they are hosting a couple of webinars later today direct on the state. And again, they're limited to 1,000 per webinar, but they'll also be recorded and put up to be viewed later. And for the community-based healthcare providers and acute care hospitals, their webinars at 3 o'clock, and small business, small nonprofit business, and small startup businesses, that'll be at 4 o'clock, and details are on the covid.sd.gov website. And that's going to be the entire, everything is run through that. And I will say the administration has done an incredible job getting the information out with that website. It's been a great portal. It's been a huge source of information during the entire pandemic. And we really appreciate the governor's office and the state agencies working with the legislature to get something done. So with I mean, I could go on for an hour just talking about how this all came to be, but I'd rather dig into questions and see if there's any help we can give.
You bet. Thank you, Senator Wiik. And I also copied the information for today's webinar in the chat box there. So you can copy and paste that from the chat if you're watching into a Word document, so you have that for later. And then it looks like Representative Reed also put the link to the portal on there as well. I'll copy and paste that and send it out. So we have this $400 million. Senator Reed, you were a big part in helping nonprofits get some money from that, because 501c6 entities, which is what the chamber is, weren't able to apply for PPP. So that was huge. Thank you so much for that. And there's also 10 million set aside for new businesses. Can you talk a little bit about, if I started my business yesterday versus January versus May, how is that working with new businesses and that $10 million for new businesses?
Well, that was probably the most complicated piece of this to try and figure out and fit within the guidance, because your loss had to be established between March and December 30 of 2020. So if you started your business in March 1st, let's just say you picked the worst time in the history of the world to start a new business in South Dakota. We certainly didn't want to leave you out of the discussion. We didn't want to leave anybody out of the discussion. And we tried to come up with a way that fit within the federal guidance that said, you don't fit with this, obviously with the nonprofit piece. You don't fit with the rules we established for the 400 million. We don't want to water down the 400 million anymore by opening it up more. So we came up with $10 million for startups, and the rules are all out there. I was just going to try and pull up the rules on that on the website here quickly, because they're all there at covid.sd.gov. And there's a very nicely put together little PDF that you can download and go through it all. And the small startup businesses right here. You're physically located in South Dakota, number one. You're registered with either the Secretary of State or Department of Revenue. That is, you're either doing business or have your sales tax license. And we had to pick a start date. So with that, we picked September 1st, 2019. And an end date for this new business would be June 1st, 2020. Because if you started after June 1st, the conversation led to, well, we've got a pretty good idea that you knew COVID was going on by then. And we had to pick a narrow window to get this done. So you have a net loss in 3 of the 6 months between March 2020 and August 2020, or an average monthly income between March 2020 and August 2020 less than 120% of the average monthly income prior to March 1st, 2020. So to fit with federal guidance, your loss has to occur within that window. And since we didn't have any previous year to compare to, we just had to come up with a similar number that would work out. And again, I don't want this, I've never wanted this based on who has the best accountant or tax attorney. It's who has the most loss and how we can help people who need that help that are doing business in South Dakota.
Awesome. I put that link also in the chat there. So we have all this money. We've heard application hopefully will open today. How do people apply? Where do they go? What's the deadline? And what do they need to apply for this money?
Well, if you're a small business, I printed that out. It's right here in front of me. You go to covid.sd.gov and you follow the links through to the small business COVID interruption. And I've got that right here on the screen. It's you're on the front page, you click the small business and healthcare grants. When you get there, then you just click on small businesses. There's your rules. And then you can follow through with the portals as they open it. The whole thing was set up and ready to roll. And apparently I've got a couple of texts this morning that the system was slightly overwhelmed, and we are getting that back online. You have until October 23rd to apply. So that does give you, I mean, this isn't a 6-hour window to get everything done, but we did want to move things along because we have to get all the money spent, accounted for, and begin some of the audits no later than December 30th. So we wanted to make sure that it all fits within federal guidance, or we're going to have to reach back into our coffers and pay this money back to the federal government. And that's one of the reasons that we're trying to move quickly on this.
Yeah. So I've been saying grants for businesses are as rare as the Vikings making it to the playoffs is kind of what I've been saying. Grants for businesses just don't exist. If you're not a minority or anything like that, there's very few grants out there for for-profit entities. So it's imperative that regardless if you think you qualify or not, you need to put an application in. Can you tell us the importance of that? If a business hasn't lost as much money, or if they don't meet all of those qualifications, why is it so important for them to apply anyway?
Well, again, Representative, if you want me to grab this one, I can. It's the main reason we did it this way is this is not set in statute. If all of the rules come up and very few businesses apply, these can be modified and tweaked very easily inside of the rules process. And therefore, if you're close, the rules are 25% loss. If you're at 18, apply. If you're at 19, apply. I mean, if you're showing a loss from COVID, we want to get you in the system because once we put this in motion, the governor's office can very quickly change whatever we need to do to fit the rules and make sure that our businesses apply. When we started this whole process of helping businesses with grants, and thank you for your kind words on that, it's South Dakota is very unique. We're 90% of our budget is funded through pretty much sales tax, or at least 88% or something like that. And the state doesn't really do much of the collections for that. It's done by our business community. They hold on to our sales tax as they collect it, they remit it, and then all we have to do is audit to make sure everybody's doing their job. So the businesses of South Dakota do our job for us, and we need to make sure they're there to keep our government open and functioning. So it's very important to us as a legislature and us, especially in the Appropriations Committee, that our business community is healthy and strong, and we're trying to do everything we can to keep it that way.
Thank you. Representative Reed, anything to add to that?
Sure. The information that will be submitted will not be public information. Although the amount of grants may have to be reported out, the business information that we receive will not be reported out. But that is a very good database for the state to understand where the issues really are. Also, if there is maximums that can be handed out for this, and there's also minimums that can be handed out. But when all of the first initial round of these grants have been gone through, and if there's money left over, then there could be more money that can be given, to businesses. And also, as the senator said, the governor's office may want to make an adjustment to make sure that this money does get out and get in people's hands. So yes, your comment to go ahead to please apply is very correct, and something that will actually help us out in understanding where the problems are for our businesses in South Dakota.
Awesome, thank you so much. And just a reminder, if people have questions, put them in the Q&A. I've got a few here that I'm going to be going through now from other business owners. So one of those is, how soon will we know what our award will be? If I apply tomorrow, do I wait until October 30? Do I know the next day? What's that timeline going to look like?
Well, I'll take this if you want, Representative. This is going to be up in the air. We're going to try and get, that's why we have a narrow window on this. Let me just say that. We wanted a narrow window on this so that we can get the applications in, get the door closed, get all the applications mixed together, and get all of the data formulated. We do not have enough employees in state government to do this. That's why we contracted with a firm called Guidehouse. They've done this in a few other states, and they're big enough to handle this, and they've been really great to work with. So once we get all of that data crunched and we find out, a combination of the resources available, let's say for business, the $400 million, the need divided by if we have to prorate at all, we hope to get that out there and try to get this money out the door very quickly. We're talking, and I'm not saying this as a committed date, but the first part of November, November 10th, I think would be, I shouldn't say safe, but at least it should be a pretty fair target to look forward to, and try and get this out there as quickly as possible, because obviously we want it out there and we need it out there. Mm-hmm. So that it can all be accounted for and all the paperwork turned into the federal government by December 30th.
Awesome. Representative Reed, you might be able to answer this one. Are the awards, will awards be deposited as a lump sum into our checking accounts, or are we going to need to submit invoices to be reimbursed up to our awarded amount?
It's my understanding that the funds will go directly to their account. This isn't something that you have to show. You're showing at the beginning where your losses are at. And so that's the funds that you will receive. So there's nowhere you got to show it or nowhere you got to bill it. Those funds will come directly to you.
So you're proving the loss in the financials you're providing. You don't need to do anything more than that. That's great. And like you said, straightforward and simple. I can't imagine having to come up with invoices for how much we had lost. So thank you for that. So that kind of answers the next question. What kind of things can this money be spent on? Do the expenses need to be COVID specific? And you just mentioned that it's going to be reimbursed for losses that we've already seen, which answers that question. So what type of auditing will be done to ensure funds are spent correctly? Do we need to keep any additional receipts or paperwork for this grant money that we may be audited for later?
I'll let the senator jump in on this one after I'm done, because he might have a few more details. But there is a possibility to be audited, but you're going to be audited on the information that you're given to get the grant. After that, how you spend the money, that's not going to be audited, because this is supposed to be a replacement, for the losses that happened to you because of COVID. I don't know, Senator, do you want to add anything to that?
I don't think I can add anything to that. You hit it just right on the head.
Great. So I think I know the answer to this. I'll let you, Senator Wiik. It says there is a very short turnaround between November 23rd and December 21st. So what happens if they get the funds and they aren't able to spend all the money that they were given? Again, this kind of relates back to this last question, but we want to make sure it's crystal clear for businesses.
This is a grant. Once you receive the money, you don't have to spend it. I mean, you can use it to, you can put it in savings, you can do whatever you want to do. It's just the losses had to occur between March 1st and August 31st. And whatever you do with this money, once you receive it, it's a grant. I would hope that you would, come to Brookings and buy a whole lot of just fun stuff, and make sure you stop at Micro Donuts on your way out, because it's my favorite stop in town. I hope they're chamber members. But just, one of the little things that about a grant is, again, the simplicity of this is you don't have to justify the money, because you justify it on the front end. You show us that you've experienced losses due to COVID on the front end, and you don't have to have the money spent by December 30th. We do, as the state.
Yep.
So that's the most confusing thing. We have to, as a state, have the money out the door by then, but you don't have to. Once you receive the grant, you can lock it all in savings or put it in cash and bury it in the backyard. It's totally up to you. Yep.
And that's been the funnest part about this is, like I said, business grants don't come along often. And so a lot of people are wondering what strings are attached. And, it's really, you have to prove your loss, and then this money is yours. The state has to get rid of this $400 million by December 31st. And that's being done through these grants. And then whatever the entities do with that money is up to them. So I love that. And I'm so excited for businesses for this.
And it's our hope that this will help, with keep people employed also. Keep your business running so you keep people employed. And keep money moving through the economy. That's really our overall goal.
Yep. How is the amount of aid determined for each business? I'm not sure which of you would know the answer to that question.
Well, it's pretty well based on loss. If you want me to take this one, Representative Reed.
Yeah, go for it.
You count in your financials, your cash flow in 2019, compare it to your cash flow in 2020. And let's say you're a small restaurant in a small town where nobody came in and you couldn't get people to work and you pretty much shut down. Well, you're going to be a pretty obvious case that you've experienced some pretty hefty losses because you don't have the income, but you also don't have the expenses. So you take your income minus your expenses and compare that to 2019. And then if you got any PPP to keep your business is in, that is subtracted out from your need, and then you put that forward, and you'll receive up to $100,000 of that total. It's really painfully simple, considering that it's emanating from the government.
Right. Anything to add on that one, Tim?
No.
Representative? So the next question, I registered my business back in April of 2019. However, I didn't start selling until later in the year after September of 2019. Do we think this person would qualify, or would there be a chance to appeal that date?
I think if you'd like, Representative, I think with that particular business, your registered date and your open date are going to be a little bit different. I would look at applying both as the small business grant, but I'd also make sure I applied in the new business sector, just to make sure you've covered. And I think a lot of those questions are way above our pay grade as legislators. You know, we set up the program, but unfortunately, it's the administration that has to administer what we set up. So, you know, with Guidehouse, and there's also a call center number that they can call and see where the best place to apply is. And that's right here on the website too. It's 605-937-7243. And that would be a really good resource for somebody who's just dancing with dates right there. Make sure that they have that those questions answered, or you know, make sure they apply in the correct place. So I'm not quite sure.
Great, and I just put that in the chat as well. And I think, again, back to the basic, the thing that we want businesses to know is just apply, right? So regardless if you think that you would qualify or not, there's not going to be another round of time, another round of getting applications. If I'm understanding correctly, they're going to go back to the pool of applicants they have and either grant businesses more than they've already received if they haven't dispersed all the 400 million, or extend the, you know, make those qualifications a little more flexible and offer those grants to more people. Am I saying that correctly?
I would say, based on our discussions that day, you've hit the nail directly on the head.
Got it. Let's see here. This is a good question. I took over a business last July. I have sales and expenses estimates from the previous owner. Will that suffice for that March through June?
And the answer for that one is yes.
Okay.
We can almost just stop right there. Yes, it will work. Previously, I had a lot of good input from businesses in the community that asked those questions and that same question. And so working with the governor's office and working with the other legislators that are on joint appropriations, we made sure that that was clear, that yes, you could use, if you bought the business, as long as you had the previous records, you could use those records.
Wonderful. Let's see here. I'm getting to the end of the line on questions. I'm trying to understand this last one. It says, I've been trying to find the form online to fill in. How do you file your 2019 statement online? And I think that might be a question that's over our heads a little. Maybe calling that call center would be better for that. I don't know if either of you have an answer to that.
I guess I'm understanding the question is they can't find the form online, and that's because although they were supposed to be up this morning, they were overwhelmed. And so hopefully later on today, Senator, I don't know if you've heard anything more, but hopefully that those online, because they want you to use the online method. Obviously that'll be a much, I think, is it only online too, Senator, that you can apply for this?
I believe it's only online, but they do have the call center set up, and they're going to have training videos coming online as the website goes out. So you should have plenty of resources available. Even if a computer is still a third language to you, you should be able to get this figured out pretty simply.
Yes.
So I think the problem there is just the website, even though they tried to get it up today, it's not functioning properly yet.
Wonderful. Oh, we got another question here.
One thing while you're looking for that question is you got to realize that this became pretty much official at 3 o'clock 1 week ago. and we're dealing with the government here. So the fact that we're able to take this from a plan that everybody pretty much was comfortable with, the entire thing was finalized and put together September 30th. It was officially approved by the legislature October 5th at like 3:30 in the afternoon. And now we're here 1 week and a day later, and it's going to be up and running sometime today. I think that just goes back to my point about South Dakota being incredibly nimble and able to solve problems very quickly.
Absolutely. We had somebody mention they were told about 15 minutes ago from the call center that it would be up in the morning. So I assume that means before noon, hopefully not tomorrow morning. Another question came in for me. Will the chamber be letting us know when things are up and going again, or do we need to be rechecking? And the answer is, if you're on our email list, the chamber has a database of all of our members. There's a primary representative for each company, and we will be sending out an email as soon as it's live, as soon as we can. And so, yes, we will be letting you know. We always get head for all of our emails we send out, but I think people are appreciating them this week. So, another question here: does the EIDL loan or advance grant count towards the federal assistance, being it was a loan, or what all is included in federal money besides a money side of things, or only PPP? So is that EIDL loan considered federal assistance?
I can take this one, Representative. This came up directly. This question came up during our proceedings on the September 30th in the Joint Committee on Appropriations. Idle loans are not counted because you do have to pay those back. Any idle grants will be considered federal assistance. So if you got the money as a grant already, then you'd subtract that from your state need here. But if it's a loan, that would not count towards your total.
Wonderful. Well, if any other questions that you gentlemen have gotten that you'd like to address here, I don't have any more questions on my end, but I want to make sure we're getting as much information as we can out. So what other questions have you heard rumbling that you might be able to share with us?
I think most of the questions that I've heard were asked here also. So I can't think of any other. I don't know, Senator, do you have something else that has been a question of you?
No, I think most of the points that have come up from the questions I have been raised here today. And if we can really cut through it, it's if you're in doubt, apply. Mm-hmm. If you really have any questions about it, get in the system so that we can get your information. And even if you're close, if we did set this too tight, the administration has the ability to loosen this up and get the money out to those who really need it. And the other point of this is apply. If you're in doubt, apply. And then if you have any other questions, apply or call the call center.
And it's very important to call the call center. If you want to go ahead and talk to your representatives here in the area, there is some help they can help with, but if you really want to not go through, have somebody else go through with the information, to just go directly to the call center that has been set up. I also know there are some folks that have said, well, now wait a minute, here's the federal government spending so much money, I'm not going to apply for it. I don't think that that this program should be going on. Just realize that this money would probably go to another state then. Money that we don't consume here in this state, and we need help like any other state, that money would just go probably to another state. So this is a program that we want to get the money into the business owners. I mean, these small business, if you notice it's a small business grant, those small businesses are so important to our economy. And that's what we're doing with these grants, is we wanted to apply them to the small businesses. There are limits, where the larger corporations, they've been helped out with federal money, and we want to get down to the local businesses because we want them to be able to stay open and help with the economy.
Yes, absolutely, and that's been this has been tough on everybody, but small businesses really have struggled. It's tough. I've heard just the stress that comes with worrying about our membership and worrying about where your next paycheck is coming from and whether or not you're going to be open next week. you know, they felt the burn. So apply. And if you have any questions, please reach out to your legislators, to your bankers, your accountants, to myself at the chamber. Our staff has been educated on all of this, and we're going to be just learning more. It's a very fast cycle here, so do what you can and apply. So without further ado, I think that's all we've got. Representative Reed, Senator Wiik, thank you so much for all you've done at the state level. You've really advocated well for our community and our businesses, and for that we really thank you. So this recording will be available on our Facebook page and YouTube page here as soon as I can get it edited and put out. So thank you all for participating. Thank you, Senator Wiik and Representative Reed, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you.